A barren rock, stolen to protect a drug cartel, became Asia's main financial artery. Today, this island of about 30 square miles channels billions of dollars daily between two rival superpowers. Welcome to Plexo. January 26, 1841. A rocky beach at Possession Point. British Commodore Gordon Bremer landed with his troops. Marines fired a salute as they raised the Union Jack over the territory. The British Crown had just taken military control of the island. Charles Elliot, a naval officer with a stern gaze and a salt-worn uniform, watched the maneuver. His mission: secure a safe harbor for British traders. The Empire needed a strategic spot to unload illicit goods and buy tea. A brutal physical image marked the start: wooden crates full of Indian opium stacked on wet sand, guarded by Marines with muskets. In 1842, the Treaty of Nanjing formalized the perpetual cession of Hong Kong. The island quickly transformed into the Pacific's main narcotics supply port. Merchants built warehouses on the rugged coast. Major trading houses set up headquarters. The territory grew. In 1860, the British added the Kowloon Peninsula, and in 1898 forced China to sign a 99-year lease. The colony operated under pure capitalism, with no state intervention. Hong Kong didn't produce goods, but it charged for everything that passed through its waters. The seed of the financial center was planted on a foundation of smuggling. What no one calculated then was that it would take 150 years for that seed to show exactly who it belonged to. The end of World War II and the communist victory in China in 1949 changed the colony's fate. Hundreds of thousands of refugees crossed the border into Hong Kong. They arrived penniless, but brought cheap labor and Shanghai's industrial know-how. By 1950, the Tsuanwan district was filled with textile factories. Chinese entrepreneurs bought American and European machinery. Entire families worked 12-hour shifts at deafening looms. The hum of sewing machines echoed in crowded concrete buildings. A brutal physical image defined the era: mountains of raw cotton bales blocking Kowloon's narrow streets, waiting to be turned into cheap clothes for the West. Cotton exports to Britain exploded, from 313 square yards in 1947 to 75 million in 1957. Hong Kong was no longer just a transit port. The colony became a global manufacturing powerhouse. Labels reading "Made in Hong Kong" flooded US and European markets. Local banks, led by HSBC, financed this industrial expansion with quick loans and aggressive credit lines. The colonial government maintained its non-intervention policy. There were no strict labor laws or environmental regulations. Corporate profits soared. By the late 1960s, the textile industry employed nearly half of the manufacturing workforce, representing about 20% of the total active labor force. The capital accumulated by these industrialists laid the groundwork for the next big economic leap. A territory built on cotton and sweat was about to reinvent itself in steel and capital. The manufacturing miracle had unknowingly built the scaffolding for a future global financial center. The clock was ticking toward 1997, the year the lease on the new territories expired. Without that land, 90% of the colony, Hong Kong, was unsustainable. September 24, 1982. The Great Hall of the People in Beijing. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher sat across from Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping. Thatcher, emboldened by her recent military victory in the Falkland Islands, tried to negotiate continued British administration. She argued the 19th century treaties were still valid. Deng Xiaoping was blunt. Sovereignty was non-negotiable. The Chinese leader said he could send his troops and take Hong Kong that very afternoon. Thatcher replied that the world would see China's true face, but she knew she had no military options. As she left the meeting, a brutally physical scene unfolded. The Iron Lady tripped and fell to her knees on the stone steps of the Great Hall. The international press interpreted the image as the final surrender of the British Empire. A year after the meeting, on September 23 and 24, 1983, panic gripped Hong Kong. During what became known as Black Saturday, citizens mobbed supermarkets to hoard rice and cooking oil. The Hong Kong dollar plunged 13% in 2 days. Investors feared the communist system would expropriate their companies and abolish private property. To prevent economic collapse, Deng proposed an unprecedented formula. The principle of one country, two systems would guarantee Hong Kong kept its capitalist model and legal system for 50 years after the handover. In 1984, both powers signed the Sino-British Joint Declaration, sealing the colony's fate. Beijing had won the negotiation, without firing a single shot. July 1, 1997. Midnight. A torrential downpour lashed the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center. Prince Charles of England and Chinese President Jiang Zemin watched in silence. The brutally physical image of that night was etched into history. The British flag slowly descended the soaked flagpole as Chinese guards raised the red flag with 5 stars. 156 years of colonial rule had ended. Hong Kong was officially a special administrative region of China. Despite the initial fear, the city did not collapse. Instead, it reinvented itself as the indispensable financial intermediary for China's economic rise. Mainland Chinese state-owned enterprises needed foreign capital to expand, but international investors distrusted communist courts. Hong Kong offered the perfect solution: courts based on British common law, free capital flows, and a currency pegged to the US dollar. Chinese corporations began listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Tech giants, state banks, and real estate developers raised billions of dollars. The city abandoned its textile factories, which moved to neighboring Shenzhen, and built glass skyscrapers to house global investment banks. The stock market soared. Hong Kong solidified its position as the world's third-largest financial center, behind only New York and London. International executives filled the city's private clubs, signing million-dollar deals. The territory functioned as a financial pressure valve, allowing Western capital to flow into China's closed market without obvious legal risks. The irony was perfect. The very legal system the empire left as a colonial legacy had become Beijing's most valuable asset. Hong Kong's financial success cemented its absolute dependence on Beijing. In 2014, the Stock Connect program launched a direct investment bridge between the stock exchanges of Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. This mechanism transformed the market structure. In the first 3 quarters of 2024, average daily northbound trading volume exceeded $16 billion. Foreign investors now bought Chinese stocks directly from their terminals in Hong Kong. At the same time, mainland capital flowed south, buying companies listed on the island. The brutal physical image of this integration hangs in the streets of the financial district. Massive LED screens display stock charts where logos of Chinese state-owned giants completely overshadow the old British trading houses. Today, over 70% of Hong Kong's market capitalization belongs to mainland Chinese companies. But this economic merger brought political consequences. As China tightened its internal control, Hong Kong's legal autonomy began to erode. Recently implemented national security laws altered the business climate. Some Western investment funds relocated their regional offices to Singapore, fearing the loss of the legal protections that made the city unique. Despite the partial exodus, the financial ecosystem survives because it remains the only secure channel to move capital to and from the world's second-largest economy. The barren rock conquered by opium traders is now the most valuable hostage in financial geopolitics. Hong Kong was not returned to China, it was handed over as a financial asset, with the bill for opium and cotton already paid by its own subjects.